yeah. Hey, hey, people, my name is Mr. Smart. Some of the girls all say I am a man with a baby, everywhere I go, I gotta put on my show to let you all know I am Mr. Smart. I am Mr. Smart.
Well, welcome back to the Requiem for Rock show. This is your host, Mr. Smart. Have a little bit of musicology, a little sociology, examining rock as it slowly fades away, and that's why the show is called Requiem for Rock. I hope you enjoyed, or at least were perhaps a bit disturbed by, last week's look at the love music at the time of the .44 caliber killer. Well, this show will stay in that decade of the 1970s, though a bit earlier. So put on your silver platform boots and your Moon Age daydream duds, dear listeners. For tonight we explore the first wave glam rock scene, a period between 1971 and 1975. Now, since this genre encompasses a unique scene on both sides of the pond, I must devote at least 2 shows to even scratch the needle across the disc on this topic. So this week we'll hop on the Requiem magic carpet ride across the pond and examine the British glam rock scene and its artists. We'll look at American glam on another show. Now, glam rock is an extremely interesting genre to consider. Why? Because of its philosophical and musical underpinnings and its basis, and its rejection of and rebellion against the seriousness of the 1960s cause rock in favor of a nihilistic, self-pleasuring decadence. Musically, it fed on and modified an incredibly eclectic mix of sounds, from British music hall, holiday camp sound, rockabilly, bubblegum music, hard rock, psychedelia, and acid rock. Use of drone and cacophony and discord was an important element in the sound, along with its proto-influences, which I'm going to discuss and we'll examine tonight. And on a more longer-term scale, it had an enormous influence on our culture, even today, evident in the current fluidity of gender identity that we're seeing much more of here in the 21st century. Equally interesting is the philosophical groundings of glam rock. From the earlier part of the 20th century in England, and from the streets of New York City circa early 1960s, namely the main sort of godfathers or main influences from that time is Aleister Crowley, Noel Coward, and the Velvet Underground with Andy Warhol from New York. Aleister Crowley was the son of a traveling preacher who seduced his babysitters at age 9 in Edwardian England at the turn of the 20th century, the 19th to the 20th. He was a magician, occultist, a sexual deviant, androgynist, a mountain climber, poet, author, and taker of drugs. A lifetime of nihilistic decadence until his death in 1947. His maxim of "do what thou wilt" appealed greatly to the David Bowies and the Mark Bolans and Brian Ferrys of future glam rock. Jimmy Page was such a huge Aleister Crowley fan, he even bought his house to live in, and some rather strange rock and roll goings-on that happened at that particular time. But glam rock was just what Aleister said: do what thou wilt. Forget Vietnam or the man, unless that man was delivering the drugs. Another mid-20th century figure who had enormous philosophical influence on later glam rock style and the artists was the playwright and British music hall performer Noel Coward. His effete, cynical, urbane lounge lizard decadence, and his obtuse but biting references to the glamorous people, revealed in his plays and in his songs, influenced and informed the teenage Bowie and Mark Bolan. So I'm going to play for you a proto-glam song by Noel Coward from 1938. But you can hear songs like Gene Genie, Rebel Rebel, Walk on the Wild Side. You can hear those songs cooking in this. So have a listen to this, because this is proto-glam music from Noel Coward in 1938. I went to a marvelous party.
I had the most extraordinary experience. I understand not everybody has that sort of experience. It's something to do with the sun and all that. I wouldn't understand myself, really. You know, quite for no reason, I'm here for the season and high as a kite, living in error with Maud at Cap Ferrer, which couldn't be right. You know, everyone's here frightfully gay. You know, nobody cares what people say. Now, though the Riviera is really much queerer than Rome at its height, on Wednesday night I went to a marvellous party with Nunu and Nada and Nell. You know, it was in the fresh air, and we went as we were. And we stayed as we were, which was hell. Poor Grace started singing at midnight, and she didn't stop singing till 4. You know, we knew the excitement was bound to begin when Laura got blind on Dubonnet and gin and scratched her veneer with a Cartier pin. I couldn't have liked it more, honestly. I've been to a marvellous party. We played the most wonderful game. Maureen disappeared and came back in a beard, and we all had to guess at her name, imagine. Old Cecil, good old Cecil arrived wearing armour, some shells and a black feather ball. Poor Millicent wore a surrealist comb made of bits of mosaic from St. Peter's in Rome. But the wait was so great that she had to go home. I couldn't have liked it more, honestly. It was the most fabulous sight. I've never seen such a carry-on. I mean, it couldn't happen anywhere else but on the Riviera. It was peculiar. You know, people's behaviour away from Belgravia would make you aghast. So much variety watching society scampering past. You know, if you have any mind at all, Gibbon's divine decline and fall sounds pretty flimsy. No more than a whimsy. By way of contrast, on Wednesday last, I went to a marvellous party. I must say the fun was intense. We all had to do what the people we knew might be doing 100 years hence. Can you beat it? We talked about growing old gracefully, and Elsie, who's 74, said, A, it's a question of being sincere, and B, if you're supple, you've nothing to fear. Then she swung upside down from a glass chandelier. I couldn't have liked it more. I've been to a marvellous party. We didn't sit down to dinner till 10. You know, and young Bobby Carr did a stunt at the bar with a lot of extraordinary men. Poor Frida arrived with a turtle, which shattered us all to the core. The Duchess passed out at 2:45, and suddenly Cyril cried, "Fiddly-dee," and he ripped off his trousers and jumped in the sea. I couldn't have liked it more. I've been to a marvellous party. Elise made an entrance with May. You'd never have guessed from her fisherman's vest that her bust had been whittled away. Poor Lulu got fried on Chianti and talked about esprit de corps. Louise made a couple of passes at Gus, and Freddie, who hates any kind of a fuss, did half the Big Apple and twisted his truss. Ha ha! I couldn't have liked it more.
Well, that was Noel Coward with I Went to a Marvelous Party. Now you may ask, what has that song got to do with rock or with glam rock? Well, it has very much to do with it, as it's really a glam manifesto. Its disaffected, obtuse delivery, its imagery of decadent lounge lizards, its presentation of the wasted youth of the 1930s that was modernized to the 1970s and used by the glam artists to come. The third philosophical influence, and also a huge musical influence on British glam, was New York's Velvet Underground. When early in his career, David Bowie, who was kind of a folky, doing sort of a hippie, folky, peace, love, summer of love kind of stuff, cause music. David Bowie first heard a Velvet Underground album. His manager brought one back from the States, and it was an epiphany for him. The avant-garde musical drone, the imagery of nihilism and decadence, of transvestites and heroin, coming out of an America that was still then in the grip of the sanitized era of bobbies and the mop-top Beatles. Well, this sound blew his mind and determined the musical direction of glam. I'll try to let David Bowie explain it to you a little bit better.
I accompanied Lou to your 50th birthday party at Madison Square. It was an absolutely fantastic evening. And I know you sang Queen Bitch, I'm Waiting for the Man, Dirty Boulevard, and White Light, White Heat. Yeah. Tell me about those songs. Why those songs?
I think, well, firstly, Waiting for the Man, I think, is probably the most important of the four, in a way. A then manager brought back an album. It was just a plastic demo album of the Velvet's very first album in 1965-ish, something like that. And he was particularly pleased because Warhol had signed the sticker on the middle. I still have it, by the way. I still have that album. And he said, well, I don't know why he's doing music. This music's as bad as his painting. I thought, I'm going to like this. So I'd never heard anything quite like it. It was a revelation to me.
And then, so it influenced your own writing and music in some way?
I think, yes, tentatively, it influenced what I was to do for the next few years. I don't think it outrightly, I don't think I ever felt that I was in a position to become a Velvet's clone. But there were elements of what Lou was doing that I thought were just unavoidably right for both the times and for where music was going. One of it was the use of cacophony as background noise, and to create a kind of an ambience that had been hitherto unknown in rock, I think.
Absolutely.
And the other thing was the nature of his lyric writing, which, for me, it smacked of things like Hubert Selby Jr., that had recently been the last exit from Brooklyn, which, and also John Wretch's book, Cities of the Night, both books of which made a huge impact on me. And Lou's writing was right in that ballpark. It was, Dylan had certainly brought a new kind of intelligence to pop songwriting, but then Lou had taken it even further into the avant-garde and had its roots in Baudelaire and Rimbaud, and that side, that other thread of history, which isn't talked about very much. Which it is now, of course. Now it is.
Well, that was David Bowie trying to give you an essence of the influence of the Velvet Underground on him and on glam rock itself. He speaks of that cacophony, the ambiance that comes from the cacophony and the drone. The Velvet Underground would use violas and violins and such with feedback and to create that cacophony and that drone. And you hear that a lot in glam rock. So, yeah, that was Bowie telling us a bit about that connection. Another proto-glam artist was the great unsung screaming Lord Sutch, godfather of shock rock and British punk, an artist that I've played here before. He had enormous influence on Brit music across the board in all the genres of early British rock. Greats like David Bowie and Mark Page, Mark Bolan, Eric Clapton, they all acknowledged the influence of screaming Lord Sutch. Yet he himself always dwelt in obscurity. He never really made any money at it. Never really got much of a big fan base. Just more of an esoteric one amongst musicians. His band, the Savages, had the likes of teenagers Ritchie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, John Lord from Deep Purple, and others before they went on to rock stardom. So here's an example from 1964 of proto-glam, and shock rock from Screaming Lord Sutch.
Shock and roll. Rock and shock, rock and roll. Guaranteed to shake your soul. Well, rock and shock, rock and roll. Rock and shock, rock and roll. Rock and shock, rock and roll. Guaranteed to shake your soul. Well, rock and shock, skull and roll. Rock and shock, skull and roll. Rock and shock, skull and roll. Guaranteed to shake your soul. Ow! In the graveyard at night, saw a skeleton, I got a fright. Well, rock and shock, skull and roll. Rock and shock, skull and roll. Rock and shock, skull and roll. Guaranteed to shake your soul. Ow! With a skeleton in the moonlight, saw a monster, what a sight. Well, rock and shock, rock roll, rock and shock, skull and roll, rock and shock, skull and roll, guaranteed to knock your soul well. Rock and shock, skull and roll, rock and shock, skull and roll, rock and shock, skull and roll, guaranteed to shake your soul.
Oh yeah, Screamin' Lord Sutch, the godfather of shock rock, British punk, one of the godfathers of heavy metal. People like Alice Cooper, later on Marilyn Manson, or any of this sort of other shock rock that we see today, all owe it all to the great Screaming Lord Sutch. Recognized as the big bang of glam rock, just like, That's All Right Mama as the rock and roll big bang. The big bang of glam rock was the appearance of the band T-Rex with the great Mark Bolan on the British music show Top of the Pops, performing this next song I'm going to play for you. This is a live version where we hear glam as formulated for the first time. Mark Bolan had shiny glitter under his eyes, which in March of 1971 was revolutionary in still staid button-down Britain. Now this drove the reactionaries wild, but the kids even wilder. Glam itself always attracted the youth. So the beginnings of this androgyny with boy fans wearing glitter and such, the 1950s He-Man version of maleness now challenged. This shocked the established culture, even the rockers, the metal rockers. You got your mother in a whirl. She's not sure if you're a boy or a girl. So here's T-Rex with the very first glam rock song, The Big Bang, on Top of the Pops in March of 1971.
She's my woman of gold, and she's not very old, Well, she's my woman of gold, and she's not very old, I don't mean to be bold, but may I hold your hand? Well, she ain't no witch, and I love the way she twitch, Well, she ain't no witch, and I love the way she twitch, I'm a labor of love in my Persian gloves, She's faster than most, and she lives on the coast, Well, she's faster than most, and she lives on the coast, I'm a two-penny prince, and I give her hot love, Take down evil.
Oh yeah, T-Rex with Hot Love on Top of the Pops, the first sort of glam rock song. No, Mark Bolan, he never learned to drive because he thought cars were dangerous. But his girlfriend got drunk and drove them into a tree anyway. He made it 2 years past the 27 Club. I want to spit another T-Rex song for you. This one, I think, lyrically and musically represents a pure glam ethos, and it's an old Requiem favorite. So this one, to me, is sort of an epitome of a glam rock song, one of the greats from that era. Got to play another T-Rex. Oh yeah, T-Rex, really the epitome of a glam rock band. Really was just the two guys that were in that band, but really was Mark Bolan. They call themselves T-Rex. They started off as a folky group too, and started to listen to some of that Noel Coward and that Velvet Underground, and started doing some different stuff. So there's an example of a the quintessential glam rock song. In the era of glam rock, David Bowie described this time period as the pluralistic 70s. The great challenge to the notion of absolute morality, replaced with relative morality. It was do what thou wilt, battling thou shalt not. The suffocating demands of absolutes, pushed on the people of society by the capitalists and the church ladies, the rules of bourgeois existence, were to be assaulted and torn down. Free sexuality, androgyny, bisexuality, drugs, self-expression, and decadence would rise above all that control. Perhaps. Or perhaps it was all just another Moon Age daydream. So later in 1971, David Bowie brought us the bisexual alien rock star cat from Japan to sprinkle more glitter and stardust over the children. Here's the title track to his exquisitely produced and iconic glam rock opera, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. You can hear Aleister Crowley, you can hear Noel Coward, you can hear the Velvets as a silent chorus, with Bowie singing out in full-throated decadence, coming on so loaded, man. The vision of a future rock anarcho society from the Leper Messiah.
Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly and the Spiders from Mars. He played it left hand, but made it too far. Became the special man, then we were Ziggy's band. Ziggy really sang, screwed up eyes and screwed down hairdo, like some cat from Japan. He could lick 'em by smiling, he could leave them to hang. Became on so loaded man, well hung in snow white tan. So where were the spiders while the fly tried to raid our bones? Well, just the beer like to guide us. So we bitched about his fans and should we crush his sweet hands. Ziggy played for time, jiving us that we were voodoo. The kids were just crass, he was the Nas with God-given ass. He took it all too far, but boy could he play guitar. Making love with his ego, Ziggy sucked up into his mind, like a leper messiah. When the kids had killed the man, I had to break up the band. Oh yeah. Ziggy played guitar.
Yeah, that's another song that epitomizes the glam era. Making love with his ego. And if you want to get all Freudian about it, this is what glam was. The id versus the superego. You know, that part of sort of self-soothing or that self-pleasuring versus, you know, needing to think about outside issues or think about the world or that sort of thing. And so it was really definitely like this struggle between the id and the superego, and glam rock said, you know what, that's okay. It's okay to just be all id once in a while. So Bowie and Mark Bolan and Elton John, Freddie Mercury, they all wove androgyny, transvestitism, and free sexuality into their songs and their acts. So what is so funnily ironic is that they created a really large fan base with the macho He-Man types, who would overlook all that for their glam star icons, but would beat the hell out of any kid who dared to dress like they did in 1972, dress like these icons. But there were kids who did dress this way anyway, brave kids looking back on it. And we, who wore the standard 1970s blue jeans and t-shirt, and snickered along with the other wannabe tough boys at those kids. Yet there was also some silent admiration. So Elmer, if you're still out there. And it was all about those kids that this next song called out to in 1973. Another glam anthem from David Essex, his one and only top 40 hit. But again, another anthem. It called out to all those kids who dressed up in the platform boots that we snickered at and admired.
dear, rock and roll, rock on, ooh, my soul. Hey, dear, do, did ya? Hey, shout, summertime blues, jump up and down in the blue suede shoes. Hey, dear, you rock and roll, rock on. And where do we go from here? Which is a way that's clear. Still looking for that blue jean, baby queen, prettiest girl I ever seen. See her shake on the movie screen, Jimmy Dean.
James Dean.
And where do we go from here? Which is the way that's clear. Still looking for that blue jean, baby queen, prettiest girl I ever seen. See her shake on the movie screen, Jimmy Dean, Jimmy Dean, rock on. Rock on, rock on, rock and roll, rock on, rock and roll, rock on, rock and roll, rock on, hey, rock and roll, rock on, hey.
Oh yeah, that was David Essex with Rock On from 1974. You could hear that distorted viola in the background. Really awesome. You're listening to Requiem for Rock with your host, Mr. Smart, on CKMS 102.7, radiowaterloo.ca on your live stream. Support community radio and challenge corporate music. We have a little sociology, a little psychology, a little history, looking at some genres here. And if you have any comments about the show, you can leave them on the CKMS website, or you can write to me at radiotrader@gmail.ca. If you have any challenges, if you're hearing something that you don't think is accurate, or you have any ideas for the show or any comments, I really appreciate it. And once again, I want to thank anyone that's listening to my show out there. I appreciate it. It's great to have listeners. I don't know how many I have out there, but I hope I have a few. And I hope you find it interesting. And as I said, I welcome any kind of comments. On to the next one. We're going to hear from one of the female glam girls, or glam rockers, glam artists. Lindsay DePaul was the Wanda Jackson of glam. Now, if you heard me play Wanda Jackson here, was the female Elvis, was the rockabilly queen. The glam queen was Lindsay DePaul. And she showed that the girls could be as free and decadent and could rock like the glam boys did. Her list of male conquests in still swingin' early 70s jolly old England included so many of the famous musicians and actors of the day, people that you would know if I want to drop some names, all of them, all the rock stars and all the actors and all the 007s and you name it. Lindsay was, she conquered all of them. She was a beautiful lady and glam in both senses, glamorous as a woman and glam in glam rock. She was a chanteuse of girl glitter with a great voice. So here is Lindsay DePaul from 1972 with Sugar Me.
One for you, the one for me, the one, pardon me, comes to three. Looking sweet and all the while, hid behind the smile was Zachary. I'm between. Save me, save me, baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, by night. Sugar, 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 sugar. Count me in from 1 to 2. But nothing more or less will do. Just me and you. Honey, sweet and harmony will melt away the bitter memory. It's gotta be. Save me, save me, baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my night. Sugar, sugar, sugar. Save me, save me, baby, baby, sugar me. I gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. I gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. I gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me, my baby, baby, sugar me. Gotta get my candy free. Sugar me, baby, sugar me.
Oh yeah, the great Lindsay DePaul. That's a really nice song, and very interesting how it melds or welds a kind of a standard pop sound with that sort of Weimar Republic sound. You know, from a few weeks ago when I played that, you hear that discordant stuff going on in the background. Very, very glam rock, very Brechtian Weimar Republic kind of stuff, and a beautiful voice. Lindsay DePaul, check her out. In 1974, Queen were a very interesting band that combined prog rock, rock opera, British music hall, camp, and some heavy metal. Very eclectic musically and representative of the glam ethos with the makeup and the glitter. A band that dared to be called Queen in the late 60s when they formed and sang of killer queens. Their Sheer Heart Attack album from 1974 is the classic example of the very musical glam sound and reflects also lyrically the same crowd that Noel Coward was singing about in I Went to a Marvelous Party. Now, recently there's been much talk of Queen and Freddie Mercury due to the film Bohemian Rhapsody, but Requiem for Rock would suggest that the best work by Queen was in this earlier glam period, before they headed into the territory of kind of a bloated, pretentious, and overproduced sound. But yeah, in 1974, they were Killer Queen. Soaring melodic vocals, sonic psychedelia, fur coat theater, rock and roll infusion with glam. Live on top of, here's another one live on top of the pops, Killer Queen from Queen in 1974.
keeps a Moet Chandon in a pretty cabinet. Bethany cake, she says, just like Marie Antoinette. A building a remedy for Khrushchev and Kennedy. At any time, an invitation you can't decline. Caviar and cigarettes, well versed in etiquette, extraordinarily nice. She's a killer queen, gunpowder gelatine, dynamite with a laser beam, guaranteed to blow your mind. Recommended at the price, insatiable and appetite. Wanna try? To avoid complications, she never kept the same address. In conversation, she spoke just like a baroness. Middleman, China, but down to Geisha Minor. Then again, incidentally, if you're that way inclined. Perfume came naturally from Paris, because she couldn't care less, fastidious and precise. She's a killer queen, gunpowder gelatine, dynamite with a laser beam, guaranteed to blow your mind. She's as willing as faithful as the pussycat, momentarily out of action, temporarily out of gas. You're absolutely dry. She tries to get you. She's a killer queen, gunpowder gelatine, dynamite with a laser beam, guaranteed to blow your mind. Recommended at the price, insatiable and appetite. Wanna try?
Oh yeah, Queen. When they were Glam, they really had a great sound with that sort of fur-coated and makeup and glam that they put out there, and very musical. And of course, Freddie Mercury is no question that he is one of the most awesome singers of rock of all time. So hope you enjoyed that one. Glam rock had its proponents of a harder edge of glam. Gary Glitter. Now, he was a sort of People of Walmart of music, and he sold his glitter act very well. He owned 50 pairs of platform boots and 30 glitter suits. His hit, Do You Want to Touch Me There, in 1973, in retrospect, stands out as very creepy, the title, in light of Gary Glitter's later stints in jails across the globe in a number of continents for the terrible crime of child molestation, where he currently resides in England in prison, and he's never going to come out. But he had that hit, Do You Want to Touch Me There, and it's if we look back in retrospect, kind of nasty. But back in the days of glam, the young kids danced and pogoed to a genuine glam anthem from Gary Glitter, one that celebrated the link of early rock and roll with a modern, hard-edged glam sound. And you know how Requiem is a sucker for anthem songs, so this one welds a primitive drumbeat call to the youth with a psychedelia 1970s and metal distortion. And it created a mass hysteria at one point, this particular song in England. Oh yeah, Gary Glitter from back in 1972. And when we heard songs like that back then, we thought that rock and roll would live forever. Mick Ronson must be mentioned in any retrospect or analysis of glam rock. He produced albums such as Lou Reed's classic Transformer, and he played the classic guitar riffs that represent glam. So many of glam songs or glam artists took from Mick Ronson or he himself, representing the riffs of glam. I want to play you now one of my favorite examples of his style. I want you to dig the solos and the riffs that we hear. So pay attention to the guitar. Here is Mick Ronson with David Bowie on vocals, doing Lou Reed's White Light, White Heat. Just check out Mick Ronson, just the star of glam on the guitar. White light messing up my mind. Don't you know it's going to make me go blind? And that was Mick Ronson, the guitarist extraordinaire of glam rock. Now, there are so many English glam bands I'd like to discuss with you, dear listeners. Bands like The Sweet, whose Ballroom Blitz was written after being driven from a stage by Scottish rocker yobs for the crime of wearing eyeshadow. Roxy Music, only just inducted last week into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who did amazing lounge rocker stuff like Virginia Plain, Bogus Man, Love is the Drug. Slade, who set the glam metal tone of later bands like Def Leppard, Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister. But alas, as always, time grows short once again. As I said, I can only but scratch the needle of the worn-out groove surfaces with so many creative and influential first-wave glam acts. Wish I had more time. Now, glam, like so many of the genres we have explored here, had its brief heyday. Like an exploding pinwheel of glittering firework, the brilliance was nova, and then faded to black hole in the mid-'70s. Bowie killed off his starman aliens, yet became even closer to the glam godfather Noel Coward when he brought about his thin white Duke persona in the mid-'70s. Mark Bolan and T-Rex were dead. Queen became overproduced. And a more mellow and more clear mid-'70s sound without the cacophony and the drone, just in a more sort of high-end, clear mix in the sound. This became more prominent in the mid-1970s. While heavy metal bands took their cues from glam, but developed a more classic rock sound that we know today. So the platform boots and the glitter jackets became relics, to be laughed at now by grandkids when they look at the fading Polaroid pictures that were taken back then. So I'll leave you, dear listeners, with yet another anthem dedicated to those granddad rock listeners out there. Written by David Bowie for the band Mott the Hoople in 1972. Fittingly, there was once a real man called Mott the Hoople. He was a famous circus freak in England. And glam was for those wonderful freaks who, even today, keep up that maxim of do what thou wilt. So here's a song that mocks the revolution as such a drag with too many snags. Instead, it's a song that celebrates a nihilistic, free, musically and socially amazing era, the time when we were all the young dudes. Good night and thanks for listening, all you rebels, and have a peaceful week. Join me next Wednesday at 10 for Requiem for Rock with your host, Mr. Smart.
I'd kick it in the head when he was 25. Speed jive, don't wanna stay alive when you're 25. And when the ceiling glows with moths and sparks, and Freddy's got spots from ripping up the stars from his face, funky little road rage. The television man is crazy, Sam with juvenile delinquent Rex. Oh man, I need TV when I got T-Rex. Oh brother, you get, I'm a good man. Oh, the young dude. Hey, dude. Carry the news. Where are you? No. Carry the news. Oh, the young dude. I wanna hear you. Carry the news. I wanna see you. I wanna talk to you. All of you. Like a queen, but he can kick like a mule. It's a real mean team, but we can love. Oh yes, we can love. And my brother's back at home with his Beatles and his Stones. We never got it off on that revolution stuff. What a drag. Too many snags. Nah, I drunk a lot of wine and I'm feeling fine. Gotta raise some cat to bed. Oh, is that concrete?